Alrighty, I'm going to give you a little tour of the brewery. This is also Sandhills Development Headquarters. So this is my office. This is where I work every day. Some of you have been here, some of you haven't. Anyway, this is our front door, not too interesting. And that is the entrance to the brewery. So let's go there and check it out. So we have a big garage door right here that you can see leads outside into our alleyway. There's not too much out here. So here is the brewery. It's pretty small, so technically it's two sides of the building right now. This is what we would call the production area, or the actual brewery. Got a big pile of malt. That's about, apologies for the sirens, that's about 2,000 pounds of malt right there. This is our first shipment that we just got. I don't know how long it's going to take us to go through it. It could be a month, it could be 2 months, it could be 3 weeks, depending on how much we're brewing. This big guy right here is a 350-gallon tote. This is what we are using to transport water from my house out in the Sandhills to the brewery. Water is one of the most important parts of the beer, and so having the best water possible is really, really important. The water in the Sandhills is way better than the water in Hutchinson, and it also helps define the sense of place for the brewery, because the brewery itself is named after the Sandhills of central Kansas, and so we're pulling the water directly out of the Sandhills as well, using it as completely unfiltered, unadulterated, 100% pure from the well. This right here is our Brewhouse, or the little brewery. Basically, it's a fully electric brew kettle. So if you look in here, there's a couple of heating elements in there, and this allows us to make between 25 and 40 gallons of beer at a time. We will probably have to upgrade this to something that makes between 100 and 300 gallons at a time in the near future, because we're going to be pretty hard pressed to make enough beer on this. But it's been a really good little pilot system that's allowed us to do a bunch of experiments and brew slightly bigger batches. This right here is a fermenter. This holds about 35 gallons of beer, 40 gallons to the top. It's considered a 1-barrel fermenter. 1 barrel is 31 gallons of beer. And right now this is holding what we're calling the Great Horn Scotch Ale. It's sitting at 34 degrees right now. And this little port right here allows us to pull a sample, which is what I actually just did. You can see this red hose here is connected to a big CO2 tank over there. That is so that I was carbonating the beer overnight. I started carbonating it yesterday, and I just pulled a little sample to give it a test, and it's pretty nicely carbonated right now. Over here we have our commercial kegerator. This is going to get moved over to the retail side here in the near future and prettied up a bit. So this is what customers will come in and get growlers and cans filled off of. Over here we've got our original big 60-gallon wine barrel. This barrel is called Amy and is currently holding a Flanders Red that is going to get bottled and kegged and given away here pretty soon. Technically that beer is homebrew, so we can't sell it, but it's been a really good test batch. So here in a couple of weeks, we are going to empty that all out, and then we will refill it up with 60 gallons of new Flanders Red that will then age for anywhere from 6 to 18 months, and then it will be packaged and sold if everything turns out okay. Over here we have another little 1-barrel fermenter. This is called a Speidel. It's made out of plastic, so it's a lot more economical than this over here, which is all stainless steel with a neoprene jacket on it. But this little guy is super useful for doing quick little turnaround batches, and if we want to add fruit to a beer or anything like that, it allows us to do that very easily. We're going to be getting several more of these. Right here we have our Glycol system. So this is a very small little Glycol system, but it does everything that we need it to. So the Glycol is currently sitting at 26 degrees, and it's flowing through these lines right here, and it's connected to this tank. As well, over there on the other side of the wall, which I'll show you in a moment, is another bigger tank. This Glycol allows us to crash this beer, it's called cold crashing, down to 34 degrees, which is actually colder than what you would typically serve it at, but helps a lot with carbonating. The colder the beer, the easier it is to carbonate. Over here we have miscellaneous tools and supplies. This is our pump. This will pump at about 75 gallons per minute and is very useful for cleaning tanks, moving beer around, and doing a whole bunch of other stuff. Buckets, you can never have too many buckets. We have more grain. This rack isn't big enough to hold our entire grain pallet, but it holds quite a bit, so it holds mostly all of our open bags and things like that. Over here, We have a couple of small barrels. The one on the left holds 10 gallons and the one on the right holds 25. The left barrel is currently holding a golden sour and the right barrel is an oatmeal stout. These are also homebrew and are going to have to get emptied here pretty quickly so that we can refill them with commercially sold beer. Tool rack, never have enough places to put tools. And here we have two more small barrels, a 15 gallon and an 8 gallon. Once again, these will get emptied and refilled with beer that we can actually sell in the near future. This guy right here is our grain rack, or sorry, our grain basket. So this goes with the brew kettle and it actually holds the grain when we are in what's called the mash process. During the mash process, you have the grain sitting in water anywhere from 145 or 142 all the way up to 158 or so. And that's the process that extracts the sugars out of the beer or out of the grain that allows you to turn it into beer. All right, let's go over here to what is called the barrel room or the barrel warehouse or the barrel cellar, whatever you want to call it. So this is the second half of the building. It's a little bit smaller than the first, but this is where all of the barrels live. So here we have 4 whiskey barrels from High West Distillery, and these currently have Flanders Red in them. They were previously used to age a oatmeal stout through Three Rings Brewery, and now they hold Flanders Red. It will sit in these barrels anywhere from 6 to 18 months. These 4 barrels right here are currently empty, but they are red wine barrels that just showed up at the brewery a couple of days ago. And these are going to get filled with Flanders Red and a golden sour as soon as our state license comes through. We are still waiting for the final approval from the state of Kansas, but as soon as those come through, we'll be able to fill those up. Then over here, there's various tools, ladders, etc. We have 8 more barrels. These barrels currently are holding an oatmeal stout that belongs to Three Rings Brewery, which is our partner brewery. This little guy right here is essentially a miniature forklift. It can lift up to about 2,200 pounds and allows us to move barrels around. You notice these racks that the barrels are sitting on. Those not only allow us to stack the barrels, they allow us to move the barrels. We'll go over there in a moment. Here, in this little room right here, this is our cold room, and this is where kegs and bottles and such will get stored when they are packaged and are sitting for conditioning. This is basically a highly insulated room that we can cool down to about the 45-degree range. It's currently sitting at 56, but that's because it's not turned on. And this is where kegs will sit to condition until they are sold. Now, over here, this is our big fermenter. This holds 3.5 barrels. So that's 31 gallons per barrel. So it's about 120 to 140 gallons of beer can sit in this tank. Here in the next 6 months, we'll probably get another 1 or 2 of these. And so this will primarily be used for carbonating a few barrels of beer at the same time, or for brewing slightly bigger batches of the beer that's more popular, that sells faster. Now, if we turn around again, this here is the entrance to our retail section. Now, this doesn't look like much right now because it's not finished, but this is what's going to become part of the customer front. So let's actually walk outside and walk, well, I've got to unlock the door. So we'll just walk in here. This is the front door that customers will come in. They'll have a sign and all that jazz. And then this is just a very small little room, but in here will be a bunch of merchandise, t-shirts, growlers, glassware, etc. And then customers will walk through here, and then they'll be able to come in here and see all the barrels. And right in front of me is right where the Kegerator, which is currently sitting over there on the other side of that wall, is going to sit. And so this is where a customer will be able to come in and buy some beer that they can then take home for off-site consumption. Unfortunately, we can't have a tap room at the moment, but hopefully at some point in the next 2 years, we'll be able to actually build out a tap room so that people will be able to come in, buy beer by the glass, and drink it on site. Anyway, that's the tour of the brewery, and I'm excited for all of you to come down and check it out at some point soon. We are super close.